Are you ready for more? Welcome to Having It All, Lifestyles of the Rich and Conscious with MarBeth Dunn, featuring experts and pioneers in health, wealth, relationships, and spirituality, creating a happier, healthier, wealthier you. And now, here's our host, MarBeth Dunn.
Well, hey there. Today on Having It All, Lifestyles of the Rich and Conscious, Episode 2, Touched by an Angel. I'm MarBeth Dunn, coach, mentor, empath, and intuitive, and I can help you confidently align with your purpose, accelerate your growth, and unleash your intuitive genius. Coming up on our next segment, a spiritual experience changed his life forever. His personal reflections and inspirations are now followed by over 250,000 people worldwide. But first, what stresses you out? And how do you handle it? I went out to breakfast this morning with my sweetie to a restaurant that we love. It usually has great food, which it did have this morning. The service is usually fast, but they were packed. I had a Skype session for a business meeting within the hour. Now, normally, I would have made it back with time to spare. We ordered right away, coffee came right away, but the food didn't. And the service was so slow that when I realized we were not going to make it home in time, I started to get tense. My belly knotted up. I began to feel anxious. You know the drill. I stepped outside. I tried to Skype from my phone. All I got was an audio connection. There was no video. And unfortunately, I needed to see what they were trying to show me. So I was frustrated. Can you relate? And I was tense. Somehow this was my fault for not making it back in time. And then I stopped. I said, "Hey, MarBeth, you're reacting to an old trigger. What's your number one goal here?" "My number one goal is always peace." So I stopped. I took a deep breath and I focused on being peaceful. I pushed the call back a half hour, and I was able to relax. Feeling peaceful is so much more important to me than getting stressed. And when I focus on peace, everything works out so much better than when I try to control the outcome. Stress always tenses up my body. I feel it in my gut. I get tunnel vision trying to control the situation. I'm sure it affects my blood pressure, and it creates negative vibrations all around me, and that's not the way I want to be. What about you? If you've been feeling stuck in old patterns and your old solutions aren't working, download my free report, Having It All, 5 Steps to Wealth and Wellness and the Pitfalls to Avoid. Go to TheHavingItAllShow.com and download your free report now. That's TheHavingItAllShow.com. And when you're there, check out the site. We've got some cool stuff. And now, at age 19, a spiritual experience changed his life forever. His personal reflections and inspirations are now followed by over 250,000 people worldwide. Join me in welcoming Robert Clancy, author of the acclaimed The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Soul, a gifted entrepreneur, inspirational speaker, author, and minister. Welcome, Robert. So happy to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, MarBeth.
I'm going to jump right in here, Robert, and ask, what happened to you at age 19 that changed your life forever?
Well, I'll tell you this short story, but it actually, I'm a high-tech, very analytical person, and to have this type of spiritual experience happen, I've questioned everything my whole life, at least up to that point. And I was at a difficult point in my life. I was actually had lost several friends to suicide, and my girlfriend broke up with me. My grades in college, I was an A student, all went down, and I'd say that was probably the lowest point in my life. And luckily, somebody taught me how to meditate, and they saw that I was struggling, and so I did. And the only way I can put this into words, and it just sounds crazy, but I actually saw an angel with my own eyes while I was meditating. It was about 2 hours in, and this light was on my wall, and I thought it was coming from my window, but it actually looked like a star. That's when I realized the light was actually coming from the wall, not shining on it.
Wow.
And over time, it actually it turned into an angel. It just like unfolded almost like a butterfly. And I sat there and I said, "Oh my God," out loud, because I could see her with my eyes open or closed. And I know what I saw because she was there for probably about an hour in this whole episode that happened, or what transpired from there. And she actually was nose to nose with me. She came right in, and I think she kissed me. And it looked like a ghost-like form. She was pure white and translucent. And I believe she healed me at that point. And at the end, she touched me in the forehead with her index finger. And that's when I closed my eyes, and it was like being plugged into heaven. I know what that kind of love feels like, and I know what heaven feels like. And she showed me my whole life what I'm supposed to do. I wasn't on my path. And I just sat there after the experience, walked into my bathroom, and I ended up talking to myself in the mirror, because I said, no one is ever going to believe that this just happened to you. And you're going to have to live the rest of your days knowing that heaven is real and that God exists. And I didn't tell anyone, really. I didn't even tell my parents until the very end of their life, which was 30 years later. And I lived all my days up to that point with only a handful of people ever knowing this. And those that I had told, other than my wife, have crossed over. There was a friend of mine who was dying of cancer at age 25, and I pulled him aside and told him about what I saw, because he needed to know. And on December 1st, that's when the quote started, and that's where my Facebook page evolved from that. I started getting messages, just these divine words were flowing into me, and I decided to start sharing those with the world, and that's where my page evolved.
That's fabulous, Robert. So what made you decide to share this experience, this angelic experience, with the world?
Well, that's a great question. What actually was a tipping point is the night that I knew my mother was going to pass away. And I knew it was going to be around 2:30 in the morning. Don't ask me how. It's just, I knew. And I pulled my dad aside that night, because they had been married for 64 years. And my dad was in World War II. He was actually on Omaha Beach during the D-Day invasion. And he'd been through a lot. And he was a frontline combat medic. So I knew, I didn't want him to give up. I wanted him to keep fighting like he always had, and to lose that kind of love. So I pulled him aside and I said, I need to tell you something, and it's the truth. And I told him what I just told you. And he just nodded his head. And the next morning, my mom had passed away, and it was Mother's Day. And we went down to see her body, and we thought it was just going to be horrible. And he just said, with a smile, "Doesn't she look beautiful?" And then he turned to me and said, "Tell your Uncle Dan," that was her brother, "about the angel." And so at that point, I just felt like, I really can't take this to the grave with me. People really need to know that every act of kindness does matter, that love is real, that divine love is there, that there is a higher source, and that hope really does matter out there, and it does work if you believe in it.
Wow, that's powerful. So I have a quote from you. You always carry a key to heaven, even if you've knocked on the door to hell. What inspired that? I know there's got to be a story behind it.
Well, it's actually somebody posted something, because I talked about the key to heaven on my website, and somebody said, yeah, and there was something with that too. But it's that, I think the bigger message in that quote for me is forgiveness. And it really starts with yourself. I mean, we're human. We make mistakes. And even if you are in those depths and you've gone that far down, you're always forgiven. And it's somehow rising above it, so that no matter how bad things have gotten, no matter what you've done in your life, You need to rise above it and make that turn. And the image that I get in my mind is almost like a person with a dark cloak, and they're staring at a shadow on the ground, and they're in deep despair. And from my perspective, I can see how the shadow is being made, because any shadow is always made by light, and you just need to turn around to see it. And that's really what that's about.
That's so beautiful. I love the way you turn a phrase. That's really, get the beautiful image there.
It's an interesting thing, because when that's why I started the video blogging, because I write these quotes and people read them, but I see so much more in them that they need to know. So I just decided to start explaining some of these, and people have really responded in a very positive and profound way to it. Because when I see the quote, it just turns their mind, and they said, I actually got a few comments saying, wow, I never thought about it on that level, but you just took that to a level that I couldn't even imagine, and now I get it. And that's the beautiful thing about those.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, because you're basically channeling. All of these words are just coming right through you, and that beautiful angel activated you. How wonderful is that?
Oh, yeah, and I got to look into her eyes for an hour, and I wish I could paint it for people. I wish I could take a photo of it and share it with people, how beautiful she was and what she had done. And just the feathers on the wings were amazing. And I got to study each one of them because she was there for that long. And I think the first thing that I blurted out after I said, oh, my God, was, what are we doing here? I put my hands up. I said, so what are we doing here today? And I knew why she was there.
Yeah.
And I definitely, probably, I'd say I would have been dead in 6 months, because I was actually mixing prescription drugs with alcohol at the time. I was getting into cars with people that were drunk, and I just didn't care anymore about myself or anything. And the next day after that experience, I changed my entire life around. And it took me 5 years to get back to where I was before I took the reverse climb off my life path.
I understand completely. I find that when people experience profound grief, they start to attract situations to them of matching vibration. And, and they just...
Mine was negative. It was dark. I went all the way down there, and I know what it's like to be at that point in your life. And I can use that to help others. That's the beauty of it.
Of course. And because you reach those depths, you have a greater capacity for joy.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So you have such kind, compassionate energy. Is there someone in particular who inspired you?
That's a great question, and I always look to my parents. My dad, as I said, was a frontline combat medic, so somebody pointed out to me one day, and I never thought about it like this. He said, wow, he was a fighter and a healer. That's quite an interesting mix, and that's what he was. And he ended up liberating concentration camps while he was in Germany and over that way during World War II. And my mother was a beautician. And it was while I was at her wake that people came up and said, it's not how your mom made me look, it's how she made me feel.
Ooh.
And then I realized I grew up with that. And really that's where that compassion comes from. My family's always volunteered. They've always tried to help others. And that's just how it's been. And my dad being the leader that he was, and my mom helping others know their inner beauty and self-worth. So putting those together, I think we always gain something from our parents. And so I look to that.
And what that says also is that communication is far greater than the words that we speak. But we are communicating all the time.
Right. Every act, everything that you do, every thought, every gesture, simple things, just a simple smile can literally save someone's life, and you don't even realize it.
Of course. And I know that with miracles, and I know you know about miracles, that they just ripple out and they touch people that you don't even know.
Right.
That's so beautiful.
We'll be back to our show in just a moment. Would you agree that the current state of the world is angry, chaotic, turbulent, and possibly insane? And that's not even mentioning everyone's personal issues. We all need miracles, and now is the time. I'm MarBeth Dunn, the Miracle Mama. Imagine a river of miracles flowing into your life, bringing harmonious relationships, better health, prosperity, clarity, peace of mind, and a deep sense of joy. What if you could know all your needs are being met and feel calm and peaceful even in the midst of turbulent change? Get your free guide now, 7 Easy Ways to Harness the Power of Miracles at miracles101.com. That's miracles101.com and live your miraculous life.
Beautiful. So let's talk about love.
It's my favorite word of all time.
I thought it might be. Someone told me that you had an acronym for the word love.
Yes. It's, oddly enough, it does involve leadership. So it's leadership, opportunity, volunteerism, and enthusiasm. And when you put all 4 of those together, you have a life of compassion and a life of meaning and a life of direction.
Let's get into that a little bit deeper. So when you talk about leadership, what do you mean?
Well, it's you never let a position of leadership define you. Only your words and actions can show others who you truly are. And I always look at that compassion always involves some form of leadership. In order to be compassionate, you have to lead yourself there. And so it's an important word that I think connects us all. And you'll find great leaders at the top of a mountain looking back upon their accomplishments and challenges. But the greatest of all leaders are still at the foot of that mountain, helping others reach that summit. And that's one of the quotes that I had gotten, and it really shows greatness comes from leading others to a place of greatness.
That's so wonderful. Wow, very, very profound. I can see I'm going to have you back on my show again and again. I love your message.
50,000 words to date, so there's a lot in there.
Now, you have an upcoming book.
Yes.
Would you tell us about it?
Sure. It's the working title of it is Soul Ciphers, Decoding a Life of Hope and Happiness. And the title came out of, decoding your life. And a cipher is really something that has to be figured out, and it's hidden. And I'm a programmer. That's the way my mind is. Like I said, I'm very logical. I am a consummate technology buff or one of those things. But there's simple things you can do to decode your life. And so, for instance, I may have a chapter on happiness, and there's a story that's written to explain that, of somebody's journey to attain that. And then I put 3 decodes at the end of each chapter. And one of the decodes for that might be, do you smile when you're alone? And I've actually asked people this, and many people have never put that into their consciousness. They've never thought about, do I smile when I'm alone? Because it's a powerful thing that can change the chemistry in your mind. It can change your outlook for the day. And so I try to smile as often as possible, because it's one of the gifts that the angel had brought me. When she first came in, she was not smiling until I thought of a funny joke and thought in my mind, can you read my mind? And that's when she started smiling. And at that moment, I realized how powerful a smile is.
It's so powerful. And in fact, our body language can totally affect our minds and our attitudes and our energy, in vibrational frequency all at once. So
right.
I love that you said that, and I love the idea of the smile. So that would be a cipher? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, it's a decode. A decode. So it's decoding that cipher, something that's locked inside you, and then figuring that out for yourself and how it applies to your own life.
I love that. Yeah.
This book is filled with those, and I'm really excited to get this out. It's in the final stages of the manuscript. I'm just waiting for a publisher and those things to come along. But we've got, so that's just a loose working title. So I think sometime next year, fingers crossed, I will have this book out.
Oh, that's so exciting. I know it's going to be fabulous. I love your work, Robert. I love the words of inspiration. They always make me smile. And so this has just flown by, and I've just loved our time together. You can find out more about Robert, his website, his social media contacts, and I think you have a special gift for our listeners. Is that not correct?
Yes. If you sign up for my newsletter, you will receive my Love's Awakening ebook filled with over 70 inspirational poems. I also have 5 guided meditations and some inspirational music. That's all gifted to you just for signing up for the free newsletter.
And thank you so much. I just loved having you on the show today. I know we'll have you back.
Yes, it was a pleasure to be here and to speak with you today.
To learn more about Robert Clancy and get access to his free guided meditations, poetry book, and inspirational music tracks, visit his show page at TheHavingItAllShow.com. That's our show. We'll see you next week.
Join MarBeth next week on The Having It All Show, Lifestyles of the Rich and Conscious. Visit TheHavingItAllShow.com now to learn more about MarBeth and her special guests and download your free report.